because I see that as kind of the starting point of the modern crash right now. It's the deregulation of the American banking industry that FDR had put into place in '35, along with a whole bunch of other industries. So between that and so-called free trade, where we are basically the only country in the developed world that no longer protects our workers. It used to be everybody did it with tariffs. This was proposed by Alexander Hamilton in 1791 in his report on manufacturers. It was adopted in large part by Congress or by executive action by 1793. And tariffs, which are taxes on imported goods. This is what Donald Trump talks about when he says, you know, if Ford wants to build a car factory in Mexico, fine, let them. But when that car hits the border, there'll be a 35% tax on it coming into the United States. That's called a tariff. Tariffs provided 100% of the revenue that supported the federal government of the United States from 1787, when we officially started as a country, until the Civil War, 100%. From the Civil War to World War I, they were 2/3 of total federal revenue. Between 2/3 and 3/4, it declined over that time. From World War I to World War II, it was fully 1/3 of our federal revenue. And during that period of time, and right up until the 80s, you know, our average tariff rates fluctuated in the neighborhood of 20 to 30%. And so, you know, the theory was, as Hamilton laid out, was, you know, if you can make a pair of shoes in Connecticut with $1 worth of labor, or you can make that pair of shoes in Mexico with 50 cents worth of labor, or in China with 20 cents worth of labor, then when the shoes come in from Mexico, we're going to hit them with a 50-cent tax. When they come in from China, we're going to hit them with an 80-cent tax. So it's going to cost you the same to make the shoes anywhere in the world. You might as well make them here. You don't have to pay for shipping. And so we used to make shoes here, and we used to make blue jeans, and we used to make clothing, and we used to make chairs, and now we don't make any of that stuff, or very little of it, because it's, you know, because we did away with our tariffs. Other countries, the other developed countries, if you look at China, at Taiwan, which arguably is a developing country, but Taiwan, South Korea, Japan, all of the European countries, they had in the background something that they could use when they said, oh, we'll all join the WTO and drop our tariffs, right? So our tariffs, the US average tariffs now are around 2%. So we've all dropped our tariffs. So they use their VAT tax, value added tax, as a tariff, as a functional tariff. The way a VAT tax works is every time you add value to a manufactured good, you pay a small tax. So when iron ore is mined and smelted into pig iron, pay a small tax. Take that pig iron, convert it into steel, pay a small tax. Convert that steel into rolled steel, pay a small tax. Convert that rolled steel into a car door, pay a small tax. Convert the car door into a car, pay a small tax. And so with Germany, for example, the average VAT tax on a car is around 17%. And German taxpayers pay that. So the way that they use this, and all these countries are doing this, except us, we're the village idiots. I find myself channeling Donald Trump way more than I would like to, but in any case, but he's right on these things. What they do is they say, okay, if you want to ship a Mercedes from Germany to the United States, we're going to give you a 17% reimbursement of that VAT tax because you're not a German. So that's a subsidized export. On the other hand, if you want to take an American car and sell it in Germany, we're going to put a 17% VAT tax on it when it enters our country because our cars have a 17% tax. That's functionally an import tariff. And when you combine the two, you've got, you know, what, 37, 38%, 34%, whatever 17 plus 17 is, 34% functional tariff, you know, in both directions. And that's why all these countries are running huge trade surpluses, and we're running a $600 to $800 billion a year trade deficit. And it really flipped in the 80s. When Reagan came into office in 1981, we were the world's largest creditor. More countries owed us money than any other country in the history of the world. We imported raw materials. We imported iron ore. We imported wood. And we manufactured things out of it. And we were the world's largest importer of raw materials and the world's largest exporter of finished goods. These are really, that's a sign of a healthy economy, and we had a net positive trade balance. So, you know, we were accumulating money coming from other countries, and so we were investing in those other countries, which some people decried as neocolonialism, but whatever. By the end of the Herbert Walker Bush administration, basically the end of the Reagan era, we had become the world's largest debtor. We had become the world's largest importer of finished goods. and the world's largest exporter of raw materials. So now we ship coal and iron ore and wood to China, and they ship us back computers and furniture and, I mean, you name it, right? And then we owe them, I think our trade deficit with China right now is in the neighborhood of $200 billion a year. And the consequence of this is that now 1/7 of all assets in the United States are owned by foreigners. Because, you know, if you end up with, the rest of the world is ending up every year with roughly $600 billion in surplus dollars because we borrowed from the Chinese and then bought their stuff. We got the stuff, they got the dollars. Where do you spend dollars? Here, ultimately. And so, you know, a couple nights ago I was at the UN for the General Assembly, and we had a dinner in the Waldorf Astoria. Guess what? It just got bought by the Chinese. So it's not that I'm trying to promote xenophobia, but I just don't think it's a good thing when 1/7 of your country is no longer owned by your countrymen and women.